My name is Brad Montgomery. Welcome to the podcast called Successful, Interesting, and Awesome, where I interview people who are either successful, interesting, or awesome. But who am I kidding? Come on, these guests are all three. So thanks for being here. Enjoy the show. Steve, tell us where you're dialing in from.
I am dialing in from Cowiche, Washington, which is near Yakima, and we are the hops capital of the world. So if you or anyone you know has ever had a beer, you can thank Yakima, Washington.
Thank you, Yakima. Wow, I think I owe you guys a lot of thank yous. Brent, where are you right now?
I'm sitting in a chair. Oh no! Well, I'm about 7 miles from Nederland, Colorado. Been up here for 46 years.
Well, hopefully you'll have served your time soon, and I'll let you out. Maybe probation. I don't know.
Yes, I'm good behavior is my model.
All right. Well, I led by saying you guys put a big positive stamp on me. When I was a young magician, so I just came out of college, and I thought I was going to be a magician for a year and then go to law school. But looking back on those years, I think I was a little version of Steve Aldrich, and I was a little miniature Brent Warren. The first question I have for both of you is, did you know that I was doing that? Because I didn't know I was doing that until later, but did you know it?
I did not know that, but you did tell me that you saw our show in Keystone, Colorado, and I guess you told me it inspired you, or you really were impressed by it, but I didn't know it was kind of a life-changing experience.
Yeah, it's funny, Steve. I just told Brent that story a couple of days ago. So the story goes like this. It was Dillon, Colorado, outdoor amphitheater, and I drove up with my parents, and we were staying in Dillon, and it said magic show at 7 p.m. and I had my first library book, Henry Hayes Amateur Magician's Handbook, from the library, and I'm reading everything I can and learning everything I can, and I begged my parents, because I was too young to drive. There's no way I was going to get there alone, and please, no, you don't want to go, please. And man, are we glad we went, because it was you and Sparks, Barrett, what's his name? Cheeseman Sparks, and Kathy DeFrancis. Yes. So we had a juggler, we had a fantastic musician, and then we had this amazing magician who pulled coins out of the air, and you did this really arty trick with coins and a glass to music, and you made cards go from some sort of tumbler or something like that up a foot above that thing, rising in the air to your hands. A handkerchief that you vanished, I don't know where it went, and it somehow appeared between two other handkerchiefs. I remember so much about that show. And yeah, that show changed my life.
Yes, you really do.
That's a lot of detail. What I remember is that two of the birds flew away, and I came back the next day with a ladder and found them high up in pine trees, and was able to rescue them and bring them home. Otherwise, they'd have spent the winter in Dillon, Colorado.
Well, then, that I was a kid then, but sometime through high school, I started, honestly, Steve, after seeing you, I got serious, and I was doing birthday parties, and then I did it through college at the Renaissance Fair, and I got lucky because I had a lot of mentors. You guys were amongst them, right? I saw your shows, and I went, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I want to be like them. And then imagine me getting to know you.
Well, you said that later you would ask us about who are our mentors. And I guess I would just say, first of all, without you knowing it, you are my mentor, because you gave me the compliment of asking you if I would join you in the Renaissance Fair. And we did a fairly creative show. And it was a compliment to me to think that I would, add something to what you were doing. And there's a couple of cases like that where you gave me the confidence where I said, if Brad sees something in me, I can't be that bad.
Wow, that is such Brent. I see you. I'm not ignoring you.
No,
We're coming to
I'm
you.
listening. I'm learning. I'm learning here. I
But
just,
that is such a weird disconnect, Steve, because what I was a punk college kid who really didn't know what I was doing, and here's this a professional magician, and it was very scary to ask you, would you do a show with me? And when you said yes, that was like, oh, and it turned out I was right because working with you, I learned so much. You and I did, I don't know,
I
100
just,
shows.
I just remember having to give you one bit of advice, and that was, Brad, if you're going to keep doing these magic shows, you have to put some clothes on. I just, and you did, and look where you are today. Look at nice black shirt.
And
Yeah, you know.
I think you gave me the clothes advice just before the cop showed up. So it was so lucky. Well, I started to ask you earlier though. At some point, because through college, then after college, I was trying to do magic for a full. I did it. I was a full time magician after college, but that's when I was a mini Brent, and that's when I was a mini Steve. And I'm so curious if you guys knew that. I think if I could see video of that, I would be able to go like, oh look, that's Steve's personality right there. Oh, that's Brent right there. Oh, that's silliness. Here's Steve. Did you guys
Like
know I was doing that?
during your Mr. Potato Head phase.
Yeah, which is something I'm not proud of. But I just was trying to be you guys. Were you aware of that?
No.
Well, not really. I just thought you were learning to become your own self. And, and of course, we all picked up stuff from different people that we applied to our own performing persona. And it just sort of was assumed that we all kind of shared
Hmm.
and gave and took. But it's nice to hear. That's very warms our heart to hear that you enjoyed and took things from our strange brains.
Well, to be honest, it was this short of thievery because
Well,
I
you
didn't
never
know.
did actually take any material. So it sounds like it was, like you say, mentoring and inspiration. Because if you had been doing my tricks, man, I'd have been steamed.
Well, I told you a story though. I don't know if you remember this. Mate, I saw you live, Steve, at the Lakewood Cultural Arts Center, and you were doing your egg bag, which, by the way, is a great trick that you do so well. And you made a joke, and I was sitting with my wife, and I turned to her and I said, "Oh my God," because I was doing that joke, and I realized at that moment I didn't write the joke that I thought I wrote. I stole it from
Uh,
you, and that,
oh, you're talking about that big theater by the courthouse.
yeah, you
Okay.
said. I think it was look in the bag. If you find something big like a pony, that's going to be a problem. Or I can't remember. That was sort of the premise that you're going to find something big. And I
Yeah,
realized I
something
stole your
too big
joke and I
in
didn't
the
know it.
bag.
Haven't we all stolen jokes? It's required that we steal jokes.
Yeah,
You
look
know,
what happened to George
you
Harrison.
want to know who was a mentor? Milton Berle. Milton Berle was famous for stealing everybody else's jokes. So, you know,
Well, let's turn
learn
it
from the
over,
best.
Brent. When you were kind of a young man trying to form what your personality was as a performer, did you have somebody that you were looking up to? Somebody a little bit more experienced? Somebody who had already proven themselves?
Well, I was raised in the 50s. I got a magic kit when I was 8 years old and became obsessed. And then joined the Omaha Magic Club, a bunch of old guys, just like down in Denver these days. And each one of them gave you something. But, it was on TV in the 60s with Mark Wilson and Nani Darnell and the Magic Land of Alakazam. And then, of course, the person that I really admired was Don Allen and the Magic Ranch, Don
Mm-hmm.
Allen's Magic Ranch, doing close-up magic. So watching those styles of the big box tricks versus the guy producing a bagel out of a bowl, those just really blew me away and influenced me. And then when you got to where you got to start going to lectures and hanging around real professional people. You will learn by watching. Nobody actually took me under their wing and said, "Here, let me show you how to do this." You just kind of learned and watched and evolved.
Well, all right, I got a follow up then, because
Yeah.
you are, Steve, I would call you more of a classical magician because you know every single trick ever invented, but then you're able to put your own stamp on that. Whereas Brent, you're just a weirdo. You've got all these really creative things that just come, like you're not doing something that someone else did and putting your Brent stamp on it. You're coming up with stuff that's all you. So do you think?
Then I've got to ask the orb. You used to call me a weirdo. It says, "Orb, am I a weirdo?"
Shake it, don't break it.
It's going to answer here in a quick.
Fat Sam.
There's your answer.
But
My sources say yes. So one of Brent's big influences was Will Rogers and also Laurel and Hardy. So when we did our Magician's Grudge match, which was a duel of two magicians screwing each other's tricks up, it wasn't really original. It was relatively original, but it was a Laurel and Hardy type of routine. And so, was it stolen? No, Laurel and Hardy didn't do any magic tricks, but they did do things where they were each other's foil. And so Brent got a lot of inspiration from the movies and especially Will Rogers.
Brent?
Well, I want to say one of the things I'm very thankful for is that I grew up in the early era of, let's say, television, where all the great vaudeville comedians came on TV to do their either silly slapstick or Jack Benny and his way of just not doing anything really. They were the greats that influenced me for sure. And then it evolved into Ernie Kovacs and people like that. And then, of course, the greatest learning tool in my youth was the Ed Sullivan Show. Ed Sullivan, where you could see an opera singer and then dancing bears and then Fred Capps, the great Danish magician, all there. And they were all, all that just influences how you become a performer and what you use in your world,
Brent, when did you know you wanted to be a performer? Because I'm guessing you at some point you dabbled and then you said, no, I'm doing this.
Wanted to be a performer. Well, you see, in my case, I got the magic kits and started performing little birthday parties for $10. And then when I got into junior high and all that, I got into folk music. I wanted to be a singer and musician, but I still learned. I was learning magic in my craft from books. We didn't have the videos like you see today. It was all from books, and then other magicians showing you a trick or two. But it went. My performing basically started out more with music, and then it went into let's fool people with tricks instead of with notes. So
you're that I didn't know that, but that makes sense because if you look at your website and just kind of follow all things Brent Warren, you're interested in everything arty and creative.
Unfortunately.
Steve, how about you? When did you decide, all right, this is no longer a hobby, I'm going for this?
My path was basically identical to yours. It sounds like you sort of lived my life after I did, because my original goal was to try to do magic for 1 year without having a regular job that I needed to use for income backup. And if I was able to accomplish that, then one day from my corporate cubicle, I would be able to brag to people, at the coffee break time, hey, I was a magician for an entire year.
Right.
And I didn't really keep a calendar when my anniversary came, and one year just led to the next. And then next thing you know, I'm at the Magic Castle, and Brent and I are doing um, our variety show, and we ended up at the Abbott's Get Together and won the award and yada yada yada. And then 30 years later, I looked around and said, "Hey, I guess I made it through my 1 year goal."
Yeah, congratulations. Yeah, bravo, bravo.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you that you were a magician for an entire year. Well, I remember. I wonder if I misremember this, Steve. You said at one point, all I wanted to do when I was young was ski, smoke pot, and do card tricks. Does that sound like maybe that you could have said that?
Yeah, that sounds pretty accurate. And I have done all three.
Only for a year.
I have really, I've done a tremendous amount of skiing. I did enough skiing that this year I finally said, been there, done that.
Oh,
Don't need to do any more skiing. But lately, my interest in magic has been greatly refreshed. And I've been, despite the COVID epidemic, practicing like crazy.
nice. Can you walk us through? So I came out of college, and there's this legend that I had never seen, and it's called the Phone Family Circus. And this is what you were talking about just now, where you and Brent and some others, from what I can tell, tore up the magic world, and you were legendary. So that was very formative in my mind, because I hadn't seen it. I only knew that it was legendary, and I knew you guys it was you guys like, how do you describe the Phone Family Circus?
I like to think of it as it was the Saturday Night Live of magic, in that we combined serious magic with comic skits to break up the ice at mainly magic conventions, which were usually just one magic act after another. They were all good, but it was the same thing over and over again, except for some great comic MCs.
Right.
Like Carol Fox and people like that. So to be part of how many? There were 7 of us, Steve, 7?
Yeah, for the full Phone Family Circus show, it was 7. We started with a 4-person group, 1 juggler, Cheeseman Spark, Brent and I doing magic, and Kathy Francis, musician. And she wrote a bunch of original tunes. And so we would sing, juggle, do magic, do sketch comedy, all kinds of original stuff. And then we did a show in Wichita where coincidentally Fred Capps was there, as well as Ali Bongo. And Ali Bongo,
wasn't Kuda Bucks?
Kuda might have been there. That might have been the year he shot out the candles. So Ali Bongo told Joe Stevens what a great show we did. And somebody was looking for talent for a convention, and Joe Stevens recommended us, except we didn't really have a group or a title, or it was just a show we put together spontaneously. And the only person that Joe knew to call in Boulder was Sam Kent, because he thought it was a bunch of people from Boulder. And so when Sam booked the gig, he just became part of the group.
That's how he got in.
And then Barrett Felker was just such a superb juggler. We wanted him, and he was always the highlight of the show. And then we added Eddie, because, the more the merrier. And we ended up with 7.
This legendary group, how much support did you guys give each other? Like, was that a formative time where you're collaborating and supporting each other, or was it competitive and that one guy was a jerk, or what was that like?
I like to think that everybody came up with ideas and everybody helped each other to make each routine come together. No, I don't remember being mad at anybody. We had fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and mostly collaboration with, as you would expect, with 7 people, an occasional, frictional moment. But overall, it was, as Brent said, a lot of people having fun. And it was an easy gig because we could do anything seriously that we wanted to, but then we could make fun of the entire magic community with a lot of inside jokes. So naturally, they loved it.
It was called the Phone Family Circus. Did you guys feel like a family?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, we had one mom, that was Kathy, and then six immature children.
how old were you then?
I'm not telling.
I must have been early to mid 20s. Certainly before I was 30.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
What year were you born, Brent?
I was born in 1965.
1946.
46. Okay, I'm 53. 1953.
Well, no wonder you guys are so much better than I am. You have had more time.
Yeah,
we got to see-
we
and
both
we got
have
to see
Beatles
Sid
albums
Sullivan.
that are older than you.
Well, now what's amazing is you're actually talking to the floating nun.
Well, what the heck are you talking
right
about?
there is the floating nun. I'm so proud to see the floating nun again.
Aldrich is the floating nun?
He is
Yeah,
the
we had a
floating
flying
nun.
nun routine.
Are you ready for his name? Sister Virginia Tallywhacker. Right there is.
What was the floating nun?
Well, Brent had a levitation that he wanted to do, and there was a show on TV with Sally Field called Flying Nun.
Right?
And so we just decided to do this flying nun routine. And Brent came out wearing Chinese garb and did some hysterical shtick. And then I came out and we did some jokes kind of based on Sound of Music and Sally Field. And then I levitated. And that was about it. But there's a lot of comedy shticks, so the crowd loved it. Brent had to put me in a trance so that I would be lighter than air, and he took his sneaker off and put it on my face to gas me. And then I went and passed out. And
That sort of gives you the idea of what we did. I think most of the stuff we did would be considered sacrilege today.
Mm.
We'd have to change a few things.
Are you so?
That was a good part of it because I remember there in Michigan when I was floating, there were magicians who were such dullards. They actually stood up and with good old flash photography, film cameras, stood up and took a snapshot of me floating there as if that was the big deal. Oh my God, he's floating. And they stood up and captured that moment on, for posterity.
Well, I feel like an idiot because what is the big deal if it's not you floating? Is it the comedy part?
Yeah, it was the whole idea of a flying nun.
Well, just to give you the insight, the idea of being supposedly a Chinese magician, which I apologize for taking on that role as a Caucasian guy, but to float a woman, a volunteer, she had to be, can I say the word virgin? And I would ask for a virgin to come up from the audience. And since no one would volunteer, I said, that's okay. We've brought our own, a professional virgin. Here she is, Sister Virginia Tallywhacker. And there we went into just what other magicians would just put the girl on the board and float her. That was our routine for making a person float in the traditional sense of the word.
Is there a tape of the floating nun?
Yes.
Video? Because you sent me a video of the whole Phone Family show, but I don't remember the nun.
Oh yeah, it is on video. Yeah, I remember. Yeah. I remember watching that on video sometime in my life.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely been filmed. I remember seeing it.
All right, well,
I'll try to find it and send it to you if I can.
I'll find that for you.
What was the creative process of the Phone Family Circus? Like, were you guys just sitting around drinking beer and you're like, oh, it'd be funny, a nun? Or what? Like, how did that work? What was
Well,
the?
Steve and Kathy were the creators. They came up with the idea, the name, the concept that we each have a phone name, and Kathy and Steve wrote the song. We are the Phone Family Circus. We have the acts you adore. I won't do the rest of it, but Steve and Kathy came up with the whole idea, and then we just filled in the parts of it.
I didn't know that, Steve.
Yeah.
Well, but when it came to
He's in a state
creativity,
of shock.
when it came to creativity, were you guys strategic about it? Meaning, all right, now we need to work on the nun bit, and then everyone gets together and brainstorms, or is it more casual and just you're kind of screwing around and did it?
Well, we did a show at a theater, one of these poverty theaters on 17th Avenue called the Touchstone Theater. And it was run by a guy named Stan Allen. And so Brent and I, Kathy and Spark, we actually sat around and thought up different sketches that we could use in that theater show. And we had songs, poetry, comedy, and a lot of magic. And then we just expanded that when we got these magic convention gigs, because we knew we could do satire about magic. And so that's where the Flying Nun came from. And we had already been doing the Magician's Grudge Match, because that was part of this Touchstone Theater show. And just when we did different gigs, we needed new material. So we work stuff out.
And it wasn't, we didn't all seven do it at once. Different performers like Barrett and Eddie did a marvelous substitution trunk, which in short is when one person is on the outside, the other person is chained up inside a trunk, and they magically switch places. But what they did was, since Barrett was a juggler, Barrett would stand on top of the trunk juggling. A cloth was raised, and when lowered, Barrett was gone, but Eddie was there now juggling. It was quite elaborate. It always impressed me that they could do this switch and keep the juggling going without dropping balls or anything. So that was one of their routines they came up with. And of course, Steve and Kathy did their beautiful coin manipulation and music together. And Cheeseman Sparks did the history of juggling.
Oh, I saw video of that. Yeah, I know that one.
I'm smiling.
Well, tell us why you're smiling.
Oh, well, you just had to when you think of Cheeseman doing the history of magic or juggling. History of juggling, it makes you smile. What more can I say?
We're talking so much about this group event, but you guys, I think the bulk of the magic you did was as a solo acts. So I'm curious about how you guys came up with your acts. Meaning, well, let me tell you a story about me, and then you'll understand my question. When I look at my early shows, the magic I did in those shows was the magic I happen to know. Right? I didn't go out and say what would be a good opening. It's just like, I happen to know this trick, so I guess I'll put it first. And later on, you look at my show, it was just here's the 6 tricks I know, or the 12 tricks I know because I learned them from magic lectures at the Magic Club or whatever. Tell me you guys were more creative than that.
No.
Well, I'm going to tell you the greatest lesson I got, because I think most magicians, we buy tricks to learn how they're done because we're intrigued by the methods. And then we started doing shows where we thought it was just about doing tricks. You do, here's another trick. Now here's another trick, here's a trick. And then one night back in I'm going to say early 70s, we went down to the Playboy Club in Denver to see Harry Blackstone Jr. And he did a 90-minute show And in that 90 minutes, he only did 5 tricks.
Oh,
And suddenly you realize, oh, it's not entertainment is not about tricks. It's about the storytelling. It's about uh, building up a reason to do the trick. And that
But
changed
what you
my
don't
life.
know is that Harry Blackstone only knew how to do 4 tricks.
Now you tell me.
well,
Because his dad wouldn't tell him anything. His dad just
Oh,
said,
great.
"Stay in the
You mean I
trailer.
could have done 20
Stay
tricks
in the
instead?
trailer, you brat."
Oh,
what's
well, but that changed my life as far as becoming a performer, to realize you needed to create things that was more about storytelling. And if you were lucky enough to be able to fool people with a mystery as well, then fantastic. So that's what kind of helped develop my persona.
well, that just baffles me because when my image of you on stage in your solo by Brent is this Marx Brothers clowny, silly, freaking creative guy doing back to back to back to back to back. Here comes a funny bit. Here's something that explodes. Very lots of things happening per minute compared to
What?
All right, so if those of you who are listening
All
to
right.
this, I'm trying to give Brent a compliment, and he comes off with he's got a gag on his head. He's got a funny hat. How would you describe that hat?
How do I describe this hat?
Yeah,
Oh, it's my toupee.
it's
It's my tribute to Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones. Imagine.
it's kind of like a headband with this big shock of gray hair coming out.
And what's amazing is how many people think this is my real hair. Woohoo! Yeah,
but
no.
I've lost control of this, haven't I? Admit it. Just confess. But Brent, you're saying the storytelling of 4 tricks in 90 minutes really influenced you, and I don't see that in you at all. I see this guy this on fire up on stage.
Well, that's awfully nice of you to say. So yeah, maybe more tricks, but I'm just saying rather than just getting up there and doing a trick, it was more how can we use this trick to tell a story? And I could give you examples, but I'll tell you there's one trick. I won't do it here, but it's called the Chinese sticks. You know this, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Every magic kit in the world comes with a set of these 2 sticks with strings hanging down. Had them for years. But I said, it's fun. This is a fun thing to do, but what are they for? What do they do? And what's an ending for doing this? And finally, maybe last year or the year before, I came up with an ending for this trick that's been bugging me for almost 70 years, and that to me was the greatest celebration of life, that I found an ending and a story to sell this silly trick that every kid magician in the world has a pair, but it took a long time before suddenly, bam, I got it. I've got the idea. So those are the moments of joy of trying to find a reason and a story and an ending for a magical routine to present to the public.
Yeah, but what's just jaw-dropping is the amount of time. Your pace is pretty slow on that creativity. But the amount of love and care that it took to come up with the right ending, and then seeing the joy on your face, that's a long time, dude.
Yeah.
Is that how creativity works? You just put it in the hopper and then you kind of patiently wait, or were you hammering on that for off and on for years?
Yeah, no, it's something you pick up. These things you don't worry about. Hopefully, you're doing other things in your life, but every once in a while, you pick it up and you go, "Oh God, gosh, what can we do with this?" And then
Right.
one day, bingo. And Steve, I'm sure this worked with you, like with your egg bag routine and things you've come up with. you've thought about it, and then one day, bingo, there it is. And then there's other things I'm still working on that I still can't figure out what to do, but it's still in there. And hopefully one of these days.
Well, because what is your ending? What did you come up with?
What, with the Chinese sticks?
Yeah, because it sounds like you found some poetry. What?
Well, I'll tell you what, these are sticks with 2 strings, right? And the story I came up with, I tell the audience at the very beginning, is my great-grandfather had these. And I said, what are they? And he says, these sticks guide you through the forest at night. And then you do the traditional Chinese sticks where one string becomes longer and the other one becomes shorter. I'm sure
Right.
Your audience doesn't know what the heck I'm talking about. But you end up with 2 long strings, and then he says, now you can guide your way through the forest at night. And I said, well, how? He says, I'll show you. And I've reached in and I made my own thing called an atomic lamp. It's a light bulb. It's a regular glass light bulb. And you stick it in your mouth and you pull the 2 strings and the light comes on.
Oh.
You pull the 2 strings and the light goes out. And so it took suddenly realizing, oh, this other unit, this light bulb, is the ending for this particular trick. So,
Well, I think
I hope
Blackstone
you get to see it sometime.
Blackstone Jr., I think, would be proud because that's what you're talking about with his storytelling.
Yeah, exactly.
Well done, you. Steve, what about your creativity? Like when you were putting together solo acts, how did you do that?
Everything is a process of evolution. And then, of course, there's a certain maturity where you're simply not satisfied with what you had done previously. And you say, I just want to get more out of what I'm doing for my own benefit and for the audience. Because as you said, when you start, you know 5 tricks, so you have a show made of 5 tricks. And then when you finally have 500 tricks, you are able to throw away 400 and say, these aren't good, they don't work for me. And then for the things that do work for you, there's always a tiny bit of evolution with each performance. And so, like you're talking about my egg bag, I worked on that for years and years. And then finally I said, and then I saw a lecture, and this guy did the ending that Roy Benson did. And it was the guy who used to live up in Sterling, who, anyway, doesn't matter. His wife's name is Mary. Anyway, he did this lecture and he made a bunch of eggs come out of the bag, about a half a dozen. And one day I said, I would just like to make about 50 eggs come out of the bag. And then I invented this gimmick based on an old billiard ball trick, which I saw a girl do at a convention in New Zealand. And there was this amazing young lady, she was probably 16 years old, and she made billiard balls appear, and she had a drawing of a clown. And so when a ball appeared, she put one in his eye socket and one in his mouth. And I don't know where the other ones went, but it was just this gimmick where it looked like you were putting up a ball in the clown's mouth. And so she could make balls appear again and again and again. I said, I'm going to use that method for my egg trick. And then after about a year of construction, I finally got it to work. And now I've got something that I'm really happy with, and it's totally my own. So I guess it took 20 years of evolution for that to
and
finally
a lot
run.
of eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of omelets.
I'm not sure I can afford to raise chickens.
A lot of omelets
So
went
he
into
goes
that.
into apples now. Yeah. He has an apple farm, in case you don't know.
Steve, I remember seeing Johnny Thompson at a magic conference, and he is just revered amongst magicians. He's the best. And I remember people saying, "Oh, best egg bag ever! Oh my God, Johnny Thompson's egg bag." And I remember thinking then and now, nope, Steve Aldrich See, he's got the egg bag. Johnny
I was
Thompson.
driving in the car after that show with you and Steve Spangler, and you said that. And that's a treasured memory to hear a compliment like that.
Yeah, Johnny Thompson's great, but he didn't have that egg bag. I didn't see what the fuss was about his egg bag.
Well, he
very
never saw
traditional.
me.
His was very traditional. How magicians did it over the years, but he did it very well in the traditional sense. Steve has now taken it to the next level of magic and fun. So yeah, bravo on your creation.
Right, but
Steve.
again, now picture me as a young, like a 21-year-old or something out of college. I'm watching Brent. I'm watching you do Professor Cheer's routine where you're pulling ropes out of every portion of your clothing, and that was so amazing. And I see Steve do the egg bag. I know from my perspective now that that is world-class magic. Those two routines are unbelievable, just so great. And I didn't know that as a kid. I didn't realize, oh, these guys are world-class. I thought you're just the guys who happen to live in Colorado.
We are.
Yeah, we were the guys who happened to live in Colorado. And I think every year there's always somebody who starts some project and strives for success, whether it's music or some performance art or engineering or you name it. And some people are dabblers, and then others get a modicum of success. But it was Di Vernon who said that magic is a lifetime pursuit. So if you were going to talk to a golfer, they would say golfing is a lifetime pursuit. You have to chase this goal of improving your personal best day after day, year after year. And even skiing, which I enjoyed all my life, I never got to be good. I just got to where, I could ski the steepest slopes and live. But there was always somebody that I admired who was, on that same steep slope and right in the fall line. And I would say, boy, I wish I could be that guy. And so whatever it is you're doing in life, you have to think of it as a pursuit of excellence. Probably William Shakespeare was writing out Hamlet and saying, this time maybe I'm going to get it right.
And it was an old magic guy I knew who said, I have a whole lot of magic in my suit. Because he bought every trick in the magic store. Yeah, and just tons of it. It was just dripping off him. It was incredible.
And what you own, is not what you are. I remember reading the story of Max Molini, and he went to some place where the woman liked magic. It was a rich woman, and she would give parties, and she would hire magicians. And so she had who knows what, maybe Aikido. And he had showed up with a lot of equipment, and Max Molini shows up and he's got, this one little doctor bag. And she says, where's all your equipment? And Molini says, I am the show. And I remember just admiring that, thinking, wow, how could you ever have that kind of confidence? How could you ever just believe, that's your response? And then one day I'm at some show, and the woman had some fear, she had some concern that something wasn't going to go right. And spontaneously I said to her, oh, don't worry, I am the show. And then afterwards I went home, I said, I just said what Molini said. And I meant it because, I am the show.
Yeah. Well, that's the difference. When you're a kid, or at some point you understand that the tricks are important, but really a magic show is about the magician, not about the tricks. But took me a long time to figure that out.
Well, there's a little bit of everything there. It is about the persona of the magician, but then it's also about what can that magician give you, what do you come away with. And some people remember the character that you're performing as, and others remember the tricks. And so hopefully it's a combination of all.
That's a perfect transition, Mr. Warren, because I wanted to ask you about how you came up with Doc Murdoch. You mentioned characters. When you perform, I don't know if you still are, but you were Doc Murdoch forever.
Well, not always. Murdoch is my mother's maiden name. So I've always had a Murdoch. And for a long time, I just performed as Murdoch. And then I was up in Aspen performing many years ago. And the day off, I went to a thrift store and I bought a doctor's bag. And I started carrying my tricks in a doctor bag. I like to think that I maybe was one of the first people to carry tricks in a doctor bag. And eventually, just to be poetic, I thought Doc Murdoch.
Wow.
And I also knew my good friend Doc Eason. I didn't want to really steal the name, but I went, gosh, that just flows so good. And we live hundreds of miles apart. So I think I will. So Doc Murdoch became my stage name.
So were you still doing that type of character, even though it wasn't named Doc Murdoch? Pre-Doc Murdoch?
Well, yeah, yeah. I think it just was in nature. But you want an example of creativity here?
Yes, please.
Well, up at I got a chance to work a magic theater bar up in Aspen, Colorado, with some other great magicians. There was Steve Still and oh God, my name. Oh,
Bob Sheets.
Bob Sheets. Yeah, I'm saying gap in the teeth. And what I learned from them was they were going around table to table, and they had a bit to break the ice at the table before they performed. And I went, oh, I need something like that. And the idea came, and I went and I bought a fly swatter, and the idea was I'd go up to a table and I said, well, don't move. And then you'd swat and boom, like that, a fly, and you end up, if you can see this, let's see, on there is a zipper. And I said, boy, look at the size of that fly. Okay.
All right, hold on. There's a couple people listening to this. So what we're seeing is he's got a real fly swatter, and then what magically appears is a 6-inch zipper.
It's a zipper. You go, don't move, and then you blam, you do it, and then you show them the fly on there, and that was how I came up with a bit to break the ice to allow them to say, okay, now show me a card trick or something. Now, the only deal is that this will only work in America because fly is a jargon, is a slang that's only in America. But I wanted to show that was seeing other people and how they were doing and what the need as a performer, what you needed to break the ice with your customers in order to proceed them to do card tricks or coin tricks or whatever. And in this
Brent
case,
can only work in the United States of America because if he tries to leave the country, when they see what's in his luggage, they won't let him get on any airplane.
Yeah, I had that problem. Yeah. So
Bob
anyway,
Reed
I just threw it off as far as just how a creative bit came about out of need, and then seeing what other people, how that influenced you to go out and create something.
That's so
Bob
clever.
Reed did a bit with bloody bones. He had enormous fake bones that were like display products for a grocery store. And this was long before the days of terrorism and all that. But he had a terrible time getting his bloody bones on the plane. It looked literally like he was a murderer trying to escape the country with parts of his victim. And he would simply give these bloody bones to somebody in the audience. They were wrapped up in newspaper, and he'd say, "Here, hold this." And then later on in his show, he'd be messing around. He'd say, "I need a piece of newspaper," and he'd look over to this guy, and go, "Oh, you've got some," and he'd grab this package, and then he'd open it up, and there were these bloody bones in there, and he would just look at the guy like, "Who the hell are you?" And he went through all of this just for that one sight gag.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it. Yeah. I'll say I did steal something from Bob Reed, in which he makes the little bunny rabbit. I'm gonna do it real quick here, but out of a handkerchief, you with you make a bunny rabbit. Well, let's see. I get both of them.
There you go.
Okay,
You got it.
there we go. You got. Let's see. There's the little bunny rabbit, right? Bob Reed did that, and then when he took it away in his hand, he had a bunch of droppings that looked like the rabbit had pooped in his hand. And I thought that was funny. And so after that, I have gone and gotten little raisins and dried raisins because I carry a Judy the mouse. It's a fake little mouse. It looks like a real mouse puppet. It's wonderful. And you show people, oh, it's just a little puppet. But when you pull it away, I've got a handful of what looks like mouse poop. Thank you, Bob Reed, because it's one of the funniest bits in the world. But yeah, it's okay. We steal from other people, but hopefully improve on it a little bit.
When I think of you, the two of you, I can come up with endless routines that I love. As you look back, so you guys are about a half a generation past me. When you look back, what are you most proud of? Which routine makes you say, that one I worked for years to get that right? It's awesome. Or maybe it's more than one.
It's more than one, and to me, it's laughter. The best pay in the world is, besides a little bit of green moolah, but for me, if I can achieve laughter in people, especially kids, if I see them just cracking up and laughter, then I say I've achieved it with a routine that works. There have been ones that don't work, so you get rid of them, but over the years, does it pay off with laughter?
Yeah, but I'm asking specifically which routine comes to mind when I say, what are you most proud of?
I'd like to answer that because it's funny you asked that today. I'm most proud of my miser's dream routine. So if anybody's watching, if you're not a magician, the miser's dream is the idea of pulling an endless quantity of money out of the air. And it's funny because you mentioned the egg bag and you said, oh, Steve, he does it better than Johnny Thompson. I just heard about some a video. It's sort of a magician's YouTube called Magicana, and you can go there and see all these videos of magicians. And Charlie Miller is on there. And Charlie Miller was just legendary for his miser's dream. So I just saw it 2 nights ago. And I watched it and I had to say, oh man, Charlie's got nothing on me. It's so much better in technique and presentation. And that's blasphemy. That's like saying my symphony is better than Mozart. But nevertheless, boy, I'm proud of that miser's dream. I got to say, it's the closest thing to perfection that I could ever imagine myself pulling off. If I at age 11 had seen somebody do a miser's dream like that, and I would have just said, oh man, if I could ever be that good, that would be my dream come true. And so about 3 years ago, I was at that magic get together near the airport with Will Rader. And I showed a video of this. And I said, I was doing a lecture for him. And I said, the reason I'm showing you this is the culmination of my life's work. 40 years of effort has added up to this routine in terms of both sleight of hand and presentation and audience appeal.
And
I want to see that. Wait, before you go on, Brent, is there video of that, Steve?
Yeah, it's on YouTube, so you can just look up Steve Aldrich magician, and it's there. YouTube.
Oh, I'm going there.
Trying to get as many hits as Gangnam Style, but I'm a few million shy.
Brent, I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
Oh, well, I just was going to comment on the question, and the thing I'm maybe most proud of is not so much a magic trick, but it's a vaudeville device that was used for storytelling called the treble wit. I thought I had it right here, but it's a folded piece of paper that you can unfold and make different shapes of objects, from hats to different things. And other performers over the years just used it to make shapes. And I finally sat down and wrote a story called The Dream, in which when you tell the story, you can actually use this trouble width to emphasize all the different points of the story. And I was just proud to be able to use this old device and give it a new life. And I've been doing this for over 20 years. And that's what probably my most proud creation, you might say.
And there's another comparison with one of the legends, because Jay Marshall had an outstanding trouble wed, and just like the Johnny Thompson egg bag, it was talked about. But Brent is just vastly superior to Jay Marshall. And I'm sure if Jay ever saw it, he would have said, I wish I could get that kind of audience reaction out of my trouble wed.
Except Jay got to be on Ed Sullivan how many times? 40 times or something?
He was on the Ed Sullivan show more than anyone except for Ed.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was on as a magician, a ventriloquist, as a puppeteer, and I'm not sure what else. And also, Johnny Thompson was on the Ed Sullivan show as a member of the Harmonicats, the harmonica.
That's correct. Yeah.
Quintet, I think it was. 5 guys playing the harmonica, and Johnny Thompson was in that group.
And let's not forget Senior Owentius, the great ventriloquist. It's all right. Man in the Box.
Yeah.
I'm taking notes because I gotta look these guys up. Well, for the record,
Brad, you've never seen Senior Owentius? Oh
no. Should I be embarrassed? Senior Wenches.
yes.
No, but you definitely want to check him out on YouTube. Senior
How do you
Wences.
spell Wences?
Wences.
Thank you.
All right. For the record,
He inspired an entire generation of junior high school goofballs.
all right, I'm in. For the record, Brent, I totally would have named Trouble It for you. Steve, still on coin tricks, but I thought you were going to say that Artie 4 or 5 coin thing with the glass and the handkerchief.
Which is a nice routine. And I spent, I don't know, a year and a half, maybe more, really developing that before I finally got it to where I liked it. And I'm going to go to a magician convention in Oregon in a couple of weeks, and they have a little contest. I'm going to do that trick.
Oh, heck yeah,
So
you should do that trick.
How good I think it is.
Well, I'm with you. I still remember it from 7th grade, so I think it's that good. I'm curious. We're switching gears a little bit. We're still on magic, but we're also on progress or not. Right now, magic is different from what I can see, 2 obvious reasons. One, the internet. It's easier to learn magic quickly than it was then. It's easier to see quality magic than it was then. Like when I was a kid, I just waited for a magic lecture or hoped that Doug Henning would come on TV. That was it. Or until I found you guys. But now you can just look up anything you want and find it pretty easily. And then also the other thing that's changed is magic for the camera, where now we have Instagram. And so having just a single, magicians call it angles. That means something's angly if somebody is standing on the side of you and they see the secret. So the person in front of you is fooled, but the person 45 degrees isn't fooled. It just doesn't work. What have you guys got any? Have you got? Steve's doing a magic trick right now that's angly.
I was working my angles.
What's your take on the internet with magic? Secrets are no longer quite as secret.
I'm appalled.
I'm with you. I mean, like I said, I learned everything from books. It's neat to have a video that kind of helps you explain things, but it's the idea that you can pretty much go online and there's somebody exposing how everything works these days, which is kind of scary. Because when I was growing up, secret was it's a secret, nobody knew. And now
it was difficult to
love it.
acquire the secret. And if you were going to spread it around, you'd have to go around to 500 people that you knew and say, you know how they do that thing where the card appears in his pocket? Whereas the YouTube exposure is instantaneously accessible to the entire world. So it's a real shame Thankfully, almost nobody is interested in finding out the secrets if they
That's the
enjoy
good
the
news.
show. But I did a videotape of a trick called the Nate Leipzig slow motion coin vanish, and I put it on the YouTube, and I was very, very pleased. And then I went to see what I did, and instantaneously the YouTube algorithm found somebody else who was doing the same trick with the same name. Well, it was some guy who was like a plumber, and this was the only trick he knew, and he exposed it. So I had to take mine off of YouTube immediately because anybody who watched it would have had appearing right on the screen the clickable, you want to see how this is done? Click
Right.
this easy to find box here. And without YouTube, it would take you years walking around the country trying to find out the secret for that. You'd have to go to
Right.
a number of magicians conventions and say, I saw a guy who did this, and it was just unbelievable. It was slow motion, and the coin just vaporized, and if you were lucky, you'd meet somebody who go, oh yeah, that's the Leipzig trick, and then he wouldn't tell you.
The good news is still when you perform in front of people, the fact that they say, wow, I'm seeing this live right in front of my face.
Yeah.
It's not video, it's not TV, and that's what gives you a wonderful feeling.
Well, I wonder though if there's a generational thing going on there, because I see what you're saying is the negative part of YouTube, which is exposure. Although, again, one of the great things about magic is unless you know the buzzword, the keyword, really hard to find the secret. So just knowing, for example, like the sticks with tassels that go up and down, it's hard to, if you don't know what that's called, you're not going to find it. Oh, Steve's doing the Leipzig slow motion.
You want? Ooh, yeah. Ooh.
Okay, well, those of you who are listening to this on a podcast, good luck with that. But man, that was cool. Oh man.
Hey, Brad, you want to know how that's done? I can tell you how it's done.
There's a clickable video.
Yeah, I can send you a video on how that's done.
But what I was going to say is the bright side of the internet is if you're a serious student of magic, you get to see magic done correctly. If you want to learn that very complicated trick, you can see what it looks like, as opposed to what we all did, which is put the second knuckle of your third finger on the middle of the pack, and we're trying to figure that out. It was nearly impossible.
That would help a good student make a more direct path to good material, and you wouldn't have to waste your youth doing a lot of students. One definite positive impact there. You can go straight to good role models like Fred Capps and Lance Burton, and you can skip Winky the Goofo clown.
But you know, a story that I've always admired was from Tony Barillo, who is no longer with us, but he went and did a course with Tony Slydini, who is a great coin master and what have you. And Tony told the story that he went every day for a week or more, and Slydini would say, take the invisible coin and put it in the air and make it vanish. Now give me $50. Take the invisible coin, put it in the air, make it vanish. Now give me $50. And he did this for a week, or to the point where Tony Slydini, Barillo said, I'm getting gypped. But finally, Slydini said, now you are ready to begin. But this was a test to see if he was truly into wanting to learn the art of magic. And I always love that story. Plus Slydini made a lot of money off an invisible coin going into the air. But I think you got to suffer a little bit for your craft,
And I'm sure that Slydini drove away those who did not have a genuine interest with that technique. If they did not pay, it'd be like going to get lessons with Picasso, and for the first month, you've got a brush and he doesn't let you put any paint on it. And you're like, well, when the hell am I going to learn to paint something, Picasso? Oh, I'm sick of this. And then you finally pass the endurance test, and now you're at least able to become an apprentice.
Well, it reminds me of a story or a bit of wisdom you told me, Steve. You know, Brad, if you pay for it, you value it more. And I think you made me pay for some. I wanted to learn something, and you made me buy you dinner or something like that. I can't remember. Like, no,
Well,
if you're serious,
still
you got to
agree
pay
with
for
that,
it.
because there are people, you give them free advice and it's just the best information they can get, and they just ignore you because they know better. And so if they pay you $50, then it's their choice to waste their time and money now, and they haven't aggravated you so much by ignoring information that's truly hard to gain.
Plus, as Slydini learned from Tony Barillo, you got $50.
Yeah, and with your success, Brad, and what you've done with your life and success, you probably could teach us, or at least me, because I'm a terrible businessman. How do you sell your ware but actually make a profit from it too? It would be interesting. It's a form of magic I haven't learned.
Yeah, but you know what? I hear the compliment in that, and that's very kind of you. And the people who are tuning in right now, don't forget, these are two guys I've been looking up to my entire life. But I wonder if I missed the boat on that, because when I was young, I was hustling money. So yeah, I had to be a magician and I had to have a show to sell, but I spent a lot of time figuring out how to sell it. And I often wonder, had I just focused on excellence to make sure the product was excellent, how would that have affected my business? And I think it would have been great for business. But instead, I got good because I did it a long
It probably
time.
would have increased your repeat business, Brad. But everybody who knows you respects you for the way you set a goal, focus on it, and then advance confidently in the direction of your dreams, to quote Henry David Thoreau. And so you didn't make any mistakes when you were going down the road of life. And one of the things I've always admired is your ability to focus on. I want to book the show and get some gigs on my calendar before I waste my time on other activities. This is my top priority. And I observed you doing some cold calls one day in the college circuit, and I just said, this guy is a dedicated achiever, and it's something about you that I admire and I am frankly envious of. As you know, my goal was to ski, do magic, and smoke pot, and I accomplished it. I'm very lucky to be living on a farm and be out of debt. It's just part of my luck. It's not because I strategically took a hold of my life, and moved it in some direction where I wanted it to go. And indeed, what you were talking about at the beginning, the whole Phone Family Circus thing was, to a great deal, a tremendous accident. Although we did have somewhat of a product to give people. So if you had showed up at these college markets and then just sucked, then you could say, gee, maybe I should have worked a little more on the artistic part. But I think you had a perfect balance of artistic endeavor and business objectives.
Everything he said, ditto.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's so funny because I started out saying, here's two guys that encouraged me and made me feel like it was possible and were unbelievably great role models. And you took time to, when I asked, you gave me help. I think sometimes you gave me help when I didn't ask. And then I'm 56 and compliments from you guys still just feel so dang good.
You're 56. You don't look a day over 6.
Yeah. That's where the creativity comes from, the ability just to lie deeply when needed. As we wrap up here, is there anything that I should have asked you to? Is there anything we didn't cover that you're going to be sorry and sleep badly tonight saying, but we didn't talk about that one thing?
Yeah,
I guess
don't
you covered
know.
everything because you drew a blank on that one.
All right. Well, Brent Warren, thank you for being.
Oh, hey, I want to ask you this, Brent.
Yeah.
Do you think any up and coming magicians reliably are going to be watching this podcast to try to get something worthwhile?
Oh, what a great question. Well, we're going to find out. Hey, if you're an up and coming magician, send me a note through bradmontgomery.com. And I'm going to pass it on to these guys.
I can ask the orb, will upcoming magicians get anything out of this podcast?
Stop it! You're killing me!
Here comes the answer.
I'd be lying if I said yes.
Oh, I'm throwing this out the window. Gosh. It didn't mean it. It lies. It lies.
I think the real answer to your question, Steve, is a little disappointing in that I think young magicians see older magicians as irrelevant. Not
Really?
That's not true universally, but I think they're looking at the guy with a man bun who just came up with a trick for Murphy's Magic for wisdom, and not from you guys who have done thousands and thousands and thousands of shows. Brent, you thought about a trick for 70 years, you said.
Magicians being represented on TV. It's mostly like Shin Lim and Lance Burton, the younger crew, but I don't see them bringing out and on TV older performers.
And even at the magic conventions, I've been going to a few, and it feels to me like the Jay Marshalls, there are just fewer of them. But yet we have this 30-year-old who came up with a great way to do magic on Instagram, and they're the star. So I don't know, Steve. We all want to know, if you're listening to this, send me a note through bradmontgomery.com and let us know what you're thinking.
Yeah, because John Carney, when he was a boy, his parents, I don't know where he lived, but his parents would drive him from, let's just say, Chicago to Fawcett Ross's hometown in St. Joseph, Missouri. And then John would spend the day hanging out with Fawcett Ross. And Fawcett would tell him stories, teach him tricks, and so on. And now we have one of the greatest magicians of all time. And I'm sure that Carney would mention Fawcett as his greatest inspiration.
I think he wrote a book about it. Even he was from Des Moines, Iowa. John is from Des Moines, Iowa.
John was from Des Moines. Okay. And Fawcett was from St. Joseph, Missouri. And so his parents were generous enough to drive there and then drop him at Fawcett's house and then, go have coffee for 5 hours and come back. And so there's a case where, learning from the old guy.
Yeah, I love that.
Is a good idea.
The other side of that story is, you said it changed Carney into one of the best magicians in the world, but also I suspect Fawcett Ross cherished that time.
Oh, I'm sure he did. John has actually worked out a show where he pretends to be Fawcett, and he affects the accent and the mannerisms of Fawcett Ross and recreates what a day in that mentorship was like. And you can see just the way he represents it, that it was a gift from the heart.
Mm.
And I have to give credit to my parents who, starting at a young age, when we did our summer vacations, no matter what city we were in San Francisco or Los Angeles or Salt Lake City, or my sister lived in Dallas, Texas. So we spent a lot of time in Dallas. And what's in those cities? Magic shops.
Ah.
And they would take me and let me go to all those great old magic shops. You walked in and boxes of all colors on the wall, and these usually old guys behind the counter, and you see, what does that do? And they pull down the box and produce silks out of it. And of course, in Dallas, Texas, Mark Wilson was in the shop quite a few times. So boy, that meant so much just to get to go to all these real physical shops. It's all online these days. But
So you
boy,
got
that
to
made
see
a
Mark
difference in my life.
Wilson in person in Dallas.
Yes, yes.
Wow, that's news to me.
Oh,
But
yeah.
what I love about that, Brent, is you named him as one of your influences because you saw him on TV. So you see this star in a magic store. That must have been mind blowing.
Oh yeah, well yeah, and then of course the people they brought in for magic lectures in the Denver club, from Goshman to Slydini, uh, and even when I was a kid in Omaha, Sam Berlan. How's that for a name? Do you remember Sam Berlan? Well,
No.
he's this old guy that invented how to vanish a coin with a pop. It had a device that caused a cap, like to go off. All these great
Oh.
people that came through your lives.
Well, we're kind of are ending where we started because I wanted to introduce my role models and my mentors to the world, and that's what we're ending with, is talking exactly that. Aw. Aw. All right. Steve Aldrich, you are Steve Aldrich, Aldrich. Check out Steve Aldrich on YouTube. I think your website, you said it was no more. Is that right, Steve?
Yeah, it was all. I was trying to get. I was trying to get people in Bozeman to contact me as a magician, and since I've come to Cowiche, I've just, and with the epidemic going on, I haven't tried to pursue
Right.
anything. But I'm still kicking. And I've done a few shows in the yard outside of our barn. I use the barn as my proscenium, and then have the audience in the grass. And we've had 3 major successes.
You're like the Pete Seeger of magic.
Yeah.
And so you have a farm. Who's coming to the farm to see the magic? How do they find out about you?
Well, there's a duo called Sunday and Mr. Gussel, and she's a vocalist, he's a guitarist, and they come whenever they're in Washington. And so we host their show, and then I'm the opening act. And our realtor knows everybody in Yakima. They literally have hundreds of friends. So they announced the show, and our last performance we had, I think, 150 people there.
Oh, that is so cool.
The realtor puts up tents, brings sandwiches, brings drinks, and all I have to do is
Fantastic. Oh, that's fantastic. That's wonderful.
Murdoch,
wonderful.
or Brent Warren is Murdoch's Magic. What is it? What's your website?
Well, my artistic website that you can get to my magic website is www.imagelust.com. IMAGELUST, imagelust.com, and you can see all types of magic there. Plus, I should tell everybody that I have a new persona. I become Mr. Walker Fishman, and I go out on the street walking a fish on a leash. It's my new life. I love it.
Okay.
Ooh, we got a little music there. I did that by accident, but it was it kind of came in pretty good, right? Brent Warren, thank you for saying yes. Thank you for being you. Thanks for making such a positive impact on me. Steve, dang it. Thanks for being you and making such a crazy impact on me. And to be able to tell the world publicly that you guys are rock stars and made me better is a treat.
Brad, you're the best. Everybody loves you, and rightly so.
You guys stay with me for a little bit. The rest of you, keep washing your hands. Take care of yourself. Be nice to each other.
All right, thanks, Brad.